Hi everyone, it's me, Ella, and welcome back to my channel. Last week I went to see the touring production of Juliet in Leicester at the Curve, and as you've probably guessed from what I'm wearing, that is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If anyone's asking about the Juliet jacket that I'm wearing, the jacket I got from Vinted, and then these patches just here did not come with it. I ordered these separately from Etsy and had them ironed onto the jacket before the show. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the changes that have happened to Juliet since the show was at the Shaftesbury Theatre in London, and I'm also going to be sharing my experience going to see the touring production. So let's jump into it. Just for a bit of context, I have seen Juliet only once before when it was at the Shaftesbury. I saw it in December 2022, and coming out of the show, I knew it was one that I wanted to come back and see again. I absolutely loved it. But unfortunately, the show closed before I had the chance to come back and make a return trip. So when I heard that it was going on tour, I obviously went and booked it more than once. I had my first show back in Leicester last week, and then I'm going to see it twice more when it comes to Nottingham in April. Anyway, let's move on to some of the changes. So the first change that I wanted to talk about just quickly is the change to the logo. I pretty much noticed this as soon as I picked up a programme. So when Juliet was at Shaftesbury, it had its own logo with a pink and symbol and then the name Juliet in yellow. Then the Broadway transfer got announced and the logo had a little bit of a revamp. It is still the same with the wording and the colour scheme and everything. However, it now features a pink heart wearing some gold headphones. That is the Broadway logo for Juliet, and since the Broadway transfer and the UK tour was announced, the Broadway logo now seems to be plastered everywhere for some reason. And the original UK logo now seems to not be used anymore, and it can only be seen on the case for the London cast recording CD and any of the posters from the London run at the Shaftesbury, apparently. I do like the new Broadway logo, however, I do really miss the old one as well. And now let's get into some of the changes to the actual show itself. So the first show change that I noticed was to some of the costumes. Now don't panic, this is not to any of the main character costumes or anything like that. They have completely stayed the same with absolutely no changes whatsoever. There have, however, been some changes to the ensemble costumes. Now, I only noticed that 2 of the ensemble costumes had changed. I'm not 100% sure whether any of the others have had any amendments or changes for the UK tour. Now, the best way for me to discuss this would be to talk about who I saw at the Shaftesbury and what they wore compared to the person in that role now and what they are wearing on the UK tour. So the first costume that I do want to talk about is the one worn by Lara McIntosh. So Zara, originally, she was wearing a dress made up of a brown long-sleeved corset and an orange skirt, and the dress was complete with a ruff around the neck. The person in Zara's track now is wearing a beautiful pink dress. The second costume that I noticed had changed was the one worn by Colette Guitart at the Shaftesbury. When I went to see it, she was wearing a burgundy jumpsuit type thing, and the person in that role now is Harriet Caitlin Dean, who is still wearing a jumpsuit type thing, but instead of it being burgundy, it is now a gorgeous mint green colour. As I say, I didn't notice if any of the other ensemble costumes had changed. They were the only two that I did notice. And as much as I really do love these two new costumes, I still miss the original two from the Shaftesbury. But I do think that the two brand new costumes are just as stunning. Another show change that I noticed, and I believe this one to be pretty significant actually, is to some of the flyers. So Anne Juliet, when it was at the Shaftesbury, had many flying moments, including Blow and It's My Life in the first half, and then in the second half you had One More Try and I Want It That Way reprise. Both the flying moments for Blow and It's My Life are still in the show on the UK tour. It's the second half, however, where we have lost a flyer. The missing flyer is I Want It That Way reprise, and I completely understand why that one has gone, especially considering logistics when you are taking a show like Anne Juliet on its first ever UK tour. The missing flyer in I Want It That Way reprise at the end of the show isn't the only thing to have disappeared. In the second half of the show at the Shaftesbury, two songs were completed on a raised platform. They were Problem, Can't Feel My Face, which is a mashup of the two songs in the show, and Everybody, which is performed by The Boy Band. On the UK tour, however, said raised platform in question now seems to be completely non-existent, which I totally understand given touring logistics for a show like this. So all the changes that I've just talked about I would classify as big changes to the show. Alongside these big changes there were also some minor changes that I picked up on during the performance. One of these was in the first half and the other one was in the second half. The minor change in the first half is to the first line in Blow, which is I'm not leaving until I dance, which on the London cast recording is said by Miriam Teakley, who played Juliet originally at the Shaftesbury. On the UK tour, however, this line is now said by Anne or April, whichever one you want to say, which I believe makes complete sense given that she's the one who sings first in the number. And finally, the minor change that I noticed in the second half is right at the very end of the show when the Anne Juliet sign comes down depicting the show's logo. Obviously, I spoke about the updated logo earlier and the changes to that. However, there has been a slight change to the sign that comes down at the end since the Shaftesbury. So, at the Shaftesbury, the sign depicted the show's original UK logo with a pink Anne symbol and Juliet's name in yellow, like on the t-shirt that I am wearing. However, on the UK tour, the sign is the other way round, i.e. a yellow Anne symbol and Juliet's name in pink, which I think is a nice change. However, considering the original UK logo is no longer used, in my opinion it would be nice to have a little moment at the end of the show when the original UK logo could be shown. So that does it for the changes to Anne Juliet, and now I'm going to talk about my experience seeing the brand new tour cast. Let's start with Gerardine Sacdalan, who plays Juliet. What a beautiful voice. She gave a lovely performance and I absolutely adored her from beginning to end. I cannot wait to see her again when the show comes to Nottingham in April. The role of Romeo at this performance was played by Liam Morris, who is a cover. His rendition of It's My Life, oh my goodness me, I don't think I've ever seen anything so powerful. He came together really well with Geraldine in One More Try, which I love. loved, and the pair were brilliant together as Romeo and Juliet. They really were. Moving on to Shakespeare now then, who was played by Jay McGuinness from The Wanted. When I saw the show at the Shaftesbury, the role of Shakespeare was played by Oliver Thompson, who I later saw as Edward Lewis at the last performance of Pretty Woman at the Savoy. So, Jay McGuinness then, he did take a little bit of getting used to for me, admittedly, but as the show went on, I found that I adjusted to him really, really well, and he delivered Shakespeare's qualities brilliantly. He was a fantastic Shakespeare. And finally, Lara Denning, who played Anne. She was so funny. She was absolutely hilarious. And her rendition of That's the Way It Is, wow, goodness me. That was incredible. It really was. The whole cast were absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to see the show twice more in April. I am so happy that Anne Juliet has finally come back. I have missed the show so much, and I cannot wait to see it again. Really looking forward to it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall see you on my next theatre trip, which will be to see Kerry Hope Fletcher in Calamity Jane. So I shall see you then. Bye!